If you look at your whole career and everything, like what do you take away from it?
Yeah, I'm the luckiest son of a bitch in the world, man. I am telling you, I am the luckiest guy. I must have been struck by lightning, and there's like this force field around me. When I came up through the career, and was able to get into the business, I was mentored by really great people. I guess my takeaway has just been a great life, and I'm not ready to stop,
Our guest today is an institution shooting for brands including Nike, Harley-Davidson, Adidas, Chevy, Pepsi, Dodge Ram, Yeti coolers, and numerous state tourism campaigns. We've seen his images everywhere, from the cover of Communication Arts magazine to the infamous God Made a Farmer Super Bowl ad.
Andy Anderson, it's an honor to chat with you today.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
For starters, would you like me to share some snaps I took on my phone? I took some sunsets.
Wow, okay.
Does that impress you?
It does.
So this is an excerpt from Communication Arts, from an article they did on you a handful of years ago. Andy is drawn to the things that shaped America and to the rugged, iconoclastic individuals who are the heart and soul of this country. You have a really vast, stunning body of work. How does your love of country produce work for these iconic American brands?
I don't know if it's so much love of country, it's just love of the humanity of what we try to do as workers in this country, right? The true archetypes, the ranchers, oil workers, miners. For people that are like somewhat the unsung heroes, there's such a rich texture there, right? There was a project I did with Sideshow folks in Florida. That just really kind of resonated with me because I grew up in Florida as a kid. Every winter I'd see these circus folks. They were in this encampment at the end of this railroad track in Taft, Florida. And you could see the giraffes and the elephants are all out running around. I just thought it was the most fascinating thing I'd ever seen in my life. So I became a photographer and I was like, I want to start shooting these ideas. And I went down there and just took pictures of them. The story was pretty fascinating because they all lived in this one house in Gibsonton, Florida. Ward Hall, he was the Sideshow guy. And just to hear how the whole business had changed over the period of years, but he'd been doing it for like 60 years. It was fascinating.
So a really great photo is comprised of a ton of magic tricks happening all simultaneously. From the lighting to the crew to the wardrobe, how do you ensure that all of those things are synthesized and happen at the same time?
The creatives, they need to trust the process, right? You set the lights up, you're lighting right, you get the clothes right. That moment is going to happen. You just have to sit there and allow it to happen instead of forcing it. If you force it, then we're wasting money.
You've got line producers that are tugging at your ear and just like, we're over.
I just, step back and just let the moment happen. And it happens. There was a shot that I did for Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's this little boy, Cal. He was sitting on the split rail fence. And I look around and I go, oh my God, that's a moment, man. And I got it, right? And it was like, just let it happen. We're with creatives that are, they'll give us the ideas. Oh, that's a great idea. Let me try that idea, right? And that's how I learn too, right? And when we get the whole process together, that's pretty amazing, a magical thing.
Tell me about your CA cover that's on the cover of your book.
I shot that in Northern California. I was in a wetsuit at the bottom of this rock, and I was just getting pelted with those little black things were rocks hitting me. They were lava rocks.
It's gorgeous. How do you help create real moments in favor of those that feel staged or contrived?
I love being around people. I love their stories. And I think making them feel comfortable around you is pretty important.
How do you do that?
Have conversations with them. When you're taking a portrait, it's an interview with a camera is all it is, right? But let's have this conversation first, because this is way more interesting than taking the photograph.
I've had the pleasure of working with you once, and I know that it's beautiful when it's in your camera. But I know that there's a whole other level of beauty that happens once you get the images in-house. I know you don't lean on it. I know you're really good at capturing it first, just right. But tell me about that.
Anybody can composite anything. That's pretty easy, right? But I think it's how you treat color, how you really understand how the color wheel works and how sometimes it doesn't work, but it works in your benefit sometimes. Look at the masters, the painters. I don't look at a lot of photography, but I look at a lot of painters.
That's interesting. Your ramp into color is through fine art, and not necessarily photography.
Like the Wyatts, the Homers, the Remingtons, Bierstadts, look at the way that artist used that light. And it just forces you to look at scenes and things like that in a more nuanced way.
So you've worked on the set with some of the really greatest advertising creatives in the business. What do you value the most in these relationships, and how do they work the best?
I mean, I've had some really amazing opportunities to work with some really great creatives. I remember Jim Hagar told me very early in my career, we were shooting for Winston fly rods. And they had no money, but it was a great concept, right? He goes, always try to get in the books, the award books.
Oh yeah.
Always try to, and that stuck with me my whole career.
Yeah.
Right? What happens is, it's not a validation of your work, but we are so insecure in this business that if you're not in the books, you're no good.
Right.
Well, it's just like, oh, I don't know what, oh, he's good because he's in the books. And it's BS.
Okay, so this iconic Mackey River shot, how in the hell did you pull that off?
That's probably one of the greatest stories that ever happened to me. The timing was like, right? This was in 1994, and we were having the fires in Yellowstone. And it's so smoky, you can't even see the mountain. And I was like, man, I can't take this photograph. I need it to clear out. So I drove to Spokane, which is about a 9-hour drive. I see the weather's gonna change. There's gonna be the storm's gonna come through, and it's gonna clear out. And it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna drive back there. We get up to this vantage point. Rays are coming. I take 4 or 5 frames and get that shot. And after that, it went right behind the mountain. It was gone. And I screwed up 3 of the frames because I had my neutral density filter at diagonal. So I had 2 good frames.
Jane Goodall, tell me about that.
That was a pro bono project. Under the Obama administration, they had taken all these animals that were on these research facilities. You couldn't put them back in the wild because you got suffering with diseases, tuberculosis, all this stuff. So they put them in the sanctuary. And they asked me to do this. I said, I'll do it, but you gotta let me tap 5 minutes with Jane Goodall to take that photograph. And they let me do it. So we spent all day taking all these pictures. We get in there and we start having a moment, and we're talking to each other. And I was done in like 3 minutes. And she goes, oh, you're already done? So let's go drink whiskey.
No way.
That's exactly what she said.
Beyond the technical, like get your hands dirty part of shooting, like get to know your camera and go shoot 10,000 images, like beyond that, what do you tell young photographers?
You need to live a life a little bit away from photography, read a book, travel, go look at art, just live another life outside of that. My work today is a lot different than it was from the very beginning. I travel the world, I do things like that, but in order for me to get really kind of energized, I just step away from it for a while.
How do you decompress? How do you turn off your creative, or can you turn off your creative?
I like to shoot a lot of my own personal work. I love that. Last year I walked to Everest Base Camp because I wanted to go hang out with these Sherpas. I did that because it's something I've always wanted to do. And I like to spend a lot of time with my bird dogs.
So last question, why is art essential to business?
If you talk about art, it's a visceral thing. If it's done right? It's more coming to here, and it knocks away all those preconceptions you have. Whatever the music you listen to, the movies you see, it speaks to you.
It changes you.
It changes you.
That's behavior affects brands, and that affects the fortunes of those brands too.
Remember the campaign, Meth Were On It? I shot that and directed that thing. But how it happened was, I was in an agency in Minneapolis, and I saw these boards on the wall, and I go, wow, that's a great campaign. I need to work on that. And it was a pro bono job, but it got 1 billion impressions.
It's such a great line. It's a perfect line.
The photos just need to tell the story, and that's what we did, right? But the headline ruled the day. It just did. They had more people go into rehab that first month than they'd had all year. That's the art of advertising, man.